And I'm pretty sure most of you remember back in the good old days where there were less restrictions on things than there is now. Like, for example, back then when there were video games, there were no restrictions for that, mostly because of, well, the way that they were designed. And how movies only had the two PG and the R rating. Well, the majority of us here don't remember that because, well, we were kids. We were born in the 90s. But now we're restricted to what we watch or play based off these flawed rating systems that we have now have these very obvious loopholes. Yet some people believe that there should be even more restrictions on these. Why? This will do some good at the get-go, but it will eventually fall apart in the long run. And it will only send us back to where we started. There shouldn't be any more restrictions than what there is, whether it's for the sale or the production of these kinds of media. So let's take a look at these problems first with selling of media, the reasons why these restrictions were put in place, and the actions that were made to attempt and control these ordeals. So, selling. There's some very obvious loopholes in selling media, like video games are restricted. I don't know about movies, but I know that video games are because of M rating. Now, with M rating, if you're under the age of 17, you cannot buy an M-rated game. But you can have a parent that is old enough to buy it for you and then just easily hand it over to their 6-year-old child. Or in some rare occasions, turning a blind eye, meaning that a court could obviously just look in your direction as you make your payment for the game and they don't know about it. And then there's not even buying it. Like, children obviously have lots of connections with their friends, so they can just go up to a friend, ask for a certain movie or game, get it, play it when their parents will know about it, and then just give it back when they're done. Or just trading it, or doing their own sales with it, instead of borrowing, just handing over money for the game. And then there's the very illegal pirating, which I do not suggest, where you download media off the internet completely for free, and it might have some things wrong with it, but it would be close to accurate. Very illegal, do not recommend it. But why were these restrictions put in there in the first place? First, here's just a list of top 5 most pirated games in 2010, and then the most pirated movies in 2011. So, the reasons for restrictions. Most of these restrictions are due to the very large amounts of violence in these games, such as, for example, in these game groups, such as Call of Duty, for example, or GTA 5. These are both very well-known M-rated games. Or with R-rated movies, you have such R-rated movies as A Clockwork Orange or The Exorcist. The Exorcist was actually banned in theaters because it was so gratuitous and violent that it would make people pass out due to its scenes of violence. But looking back to, let's say, 1980s, there were not as many restrictions back then because this was all new to people. They wanted to see how it would work and where this would get them, and what kind of bad things would happen. Also, which would also mean that people weren't as against it because, again, it was still new. So, what actions have been taken today to control media? Well, there are 2 existing systems. The first one, the Entertainment Software Rating Board, or ESRB, is for games, ranging from early childhood to the adult-only games. And then for movies, there is the Motion Picture Association of America Rating System, or MPAA, which ranges from G, general audience, to NC-17, which means that no child under the age of 17 is allowed to see these movies. other countries vary on how these systems are rated. Like, for example, Germany has this rating system that you cannot be under the age of 12, you cannot be under the age of 16, you cannot be under the age of 16 or 18. It can vary amongst which country you're from and their ethics when it comes to movies. And then there's the dreaded lobbyists, such as one person, for example, Jack Thompson, is very much against violence in video games, that whenever there's been a case of a teenager in a murder case, you would always go in and try and blame the history of the games that he's played, that child has played. He sent multiple letters to companies asking them to dial down or just quit making games in general, but usually these attempts just fall flat on their backs. Another law was tried to put in place, which was called Law HR 287, being its official term, being to put a certain cap on the amount of violence that was in certain video games or movies. So, my final question to all of you is, should there be any more restrictions? Because the way it would work is that it would only gum up the system even more. People will find loopholes, and they will use that loophole, and they will abuse that loophole. I believe not. Mostly because this system will just fall flat on its back, or it'll just create too much anger, frustration, and confusion, making everything worse for everyone. And those were just some of the reasons why there shouldn't be any more restrictions. That hopefully my continuous rambling has enlightened all of you on this topic. Which takes us back to the question we asked ourselves over many topics in today's news, which is, why can't we just go back to the good old days?